So first off, the changing landscape of travel. So I know when I was with all of you, I did a talk during homecoming and last year's destination debut. Since then, we've really ramped things up, as have all the tour operators. We know that COVID-19 protocols are here to stay and they are to be expected. And so we have really built out our wellness resources available to travelers. And so if you go to orbridge.com/wellness, not only will that page show you and talk in great detail about all of the wellness protocols that are consistent across every single tour that we offer, but on that page, there are also tour specific pages. So you click into Antarctica as an example, and it'll tell you what to expect on the vessel, what to expect in those particular destinations that you're visiting. And so as you're thinking about travel, especially on one of our Orbridge tours, I would highly encourage you to visit. That's a live page that as something updates or we get new information, it's updated live on that website. Next, under that second bullet, and this is something that you'll start to see with other operators if you haven't already, is that especially in the spirit of small group travel, for Orbridge, we do now require you to either have a COVID-19 vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test result from a test taken no more than 3 days prior to arrival on tour. And so I have the asterisk there primarily to indicate that these are subject to change really at any time. One thing that we've all learned this past year is that what I share today, we may have new guidance or health research or information that influences what the requirement is. So everything that I'm talking about here is in place as of right now. So if you are booking on our September 2022 National Parks tours, it's imperative, and obviously you would be keeping up to date with the latest advice and kind of expectations, but just to kind of be aware of that, that's my reminder that everything here is subject to, as of right now. But with that being said, we also don't trump international requirements or state requirements. And so if there is a country that requires anyone coming into it to be vaccinated, that trumps Orbridge's requirements. So while we say that you can have a vaccine or a negative test, if you're visiting a destination that says you have to have one or the other, we obviously will let you know that, and you'll be expected to follow that advice. And then, like I said, there are destination-specific requirements, and those are all accessed via the orbridge.com/wellness page. So that's kind of in a nutshell how COVID has changed in terms of health and wellness, but then also in terms of flexibility for the travelers. And so one of the things that we have done and we're really proud of is that we have changed our refund policy for all new bookings. And so obviously, if you had travel impacted last year as a result of COVID, a lot of times those trips were postponed, or you had credits that you were able to then apply towards future travel. And if you have those credits and you were impacted last year, you still are kind of held to those original terms and conditions. We spent a good chunk of late last year, the first part of this year, basically rewriting all of our contracts and all of our agreements with every single supplier around the world to provide this additional flexibility. So for all new bookings, if you cancel your tour at least 91 days prior to the scheduled tour date, you get every penny back. So then that way you can, if you, after today's session, you get inspired to go to Scotland with us and you sign up tomorrow, but then decide 92 days prior to your tour that, you know what, I don't feel like going anymore for whatever reason, you let us know, and then you would get all of that money back. The only exceptions are Antarctica and Trans-Siberian. RICE is offering both of those, so I do just want to call that out, that for those two programs, it is 180. And in the spirit of transparency, it's because those are such higher price point tours that our contracts and our agreements with those suppliers are much more onerous. And so you still get the full refund, but the window of time before departure is a bit different. as well as we are continuing with our fee-free transfers and credit extensions. And so if you currently have a future travel credit with us or anything like that, we are allowing you to make those changes, to give it to others. So we remain flexible in that regard. So if there's one silver lining as a result of COVID-19 and its impact on the travel industry, is that there is more flexibility now moving forward with a lot of lessons learned. And so kind of thinking about the evolution of the Ontour experience. And so some of you have seen these photos last year, but not everyone, but they hold true to this day. So we are actually one of the only tour operators who has run any tours. We ran six of our national parks tours last year. We have a national parks tour on the ground right now. We had a group in the Galapagos in late April. Our sister company and us had 70 people at the Derby last weekend. So we have full and utter confidence in our on-tour experience and the protocols that we have. And I've been fortunate to be on 2 of the tours that we've operated. So I can say with personal kind of certainty that you're in good hands with traveling. And so some of the highlights of what you can look for and expect with the Orbridge tours is the social distancing, obviously. Even with requiring the vaccination or the negative COVID-19 test, we still do have reduced capacity on the motor coaches with vacant seats throughout so that there's some room to spread out. We still are proud of and continue to provide the private experiences just for our guests. And so, like you see in that picture on the top right-hand side of the screen, even though vaccines and testing is obviously more readily available, we are continuing with our commitment to provide essentially the Orbridge bubble wherever is possible so that you are traveling predominantly and at experiences predominantly with just your fellow travelers. Again, taking advantage of the great outdoors whenever we can. So many of the tours that Shannon picked that she'll be offering that I'll talk about soon in 2022 are really that you're going to be in great places in the outdoors. And so it will make it very enjoyable to take advantage of those opportunities. And then of course, throughout, just like we're kind of all becoming used to modified meal service, so elimination of self-service buffets, elimination of kind of shared salt and pepper shakers on the tables, things like that are all elements that are woven into the new on-tour experience. But between having been on this national parks tour where I took these photos and on the Kentucky Derby tour this past weekend, I can say that the experience is the same. Are you wearing face coverings? Yes. Do you have fewer people that you're sitting with at your table? Yes. But you're experiencing the same thing. You're having the same visits and opportunities to experience these great places. And so with that, I'm going to go in chronological order over the 8 different tours that we will be offering in 2022. And so the first one is our Antarctica program. So Antarctica is a bucket list destination that I know some of you have been to. When I worked at Rice, we had a departure, gosh, now probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point that had almost 20 people on it. And so if you haven't been to Antarctica, we hope that you'll consider it with Orbridge. And so with our program, it was actually so popular that we have added this second date. And so the original date was a little bit later in January. And then by the time marketing dropped for Rice, that date was full. So now all of the Rice travelers that are booked and any new interest will be January 4th to the 15th. And one of the things about this tour is that we will be using the brand new Ocean Victory with an X-bow. And so the Drake Passage that you see on the map on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, going from Ushuaia down into the South Shetland Islands, that can be an arduous pathway that is quite rocky, and especially if you're susceptible to seasickness. But with the X-bow ship that we are using that is brand new and going online this year, because of the way it's designed. I'm no engineer, and there are probably some here with fellow Rice engineers, so I don't claim to be an expert on the engineering of the boat, but what I do know in layman's terms is that it's an X-bow, so that cuts down on the rockiness because of the way it glides through the water and the waves, and so it essentially kind of minimizes the rocking and rolling. And so with that, we're actually able to do that Drake Passage about 10 hours shorter in each direction, which makes for a huge difference in the amount of time that you actually get to spend down on the Antarctic Peninsula and visiting the South Shetland Islands. And so on this program and with all of our tours, your gratuities are included, your transfers are included. So if you arrive to the airport between a certain window, that's generally 5 to 8 hours, depending on the tour, you don't have to worry about transferring to the hotel or to the cruise ship. That is all provided for you. On this particular program in Antarctica, we do provide you parkas that you get to keep and return home with as a souvenir, which is kind of nice because a lot of us, especially if you live here in Houston, you might not have a parka in your coat closet since we don't need it that often, but we make sure you have that. All of obviously your meals, including alcohol with lunch and dinner, are included. And you see it's kind of hard because of the small picture, but on the bottom left-hand side, you see the little kind of raft boat that you're on. And so we have a team of over 12 expedition leaders and naturalists who are joining you on this. So you are going out in groups of about 12 in having these really where you're going up into the nooks and crannies. So the total capacity for this program is 195 people, all affiliated with Orbridge. And so that is a high-level Antarctica overview. And then next we'll go into flavors of Northern Italy. So this program is in June 4th through the 12th, and this is a no single supplement program. So especially if you like to travel solo, maybe you need a break from your significant other, and you need to kind of get out of the house for a little bit, this program is one that you wouldn't have that extra supplement that I know that are not. It's not something popular, and we really try when possible to provide an opportunity without it. So our Flavors of Northern Italy program, during the entire time you stay in the one villa, it's the Selva Capuzza, and we charter it, and it's only 20 guests. And so those 20 guests are just Orbridge travelers. There's not a single other person on the property aside from the staff there that works the property and that is traveling with you. And so while some of the photos here are culinary in nature, and by the title you think it's a food program, there's no denying that. There is a lot of food and wine and cuisine, and I'll emphasize the wine. There's a lot of that during these programs, but each day there are multiple cultural excursions. So whether it is going into museums, artist galleries, UNESCO World Heritage sites, the boat tours of Lago de Garza and whatnot. And so while there are the food and wine elements of this program, you're not going to be sitting around cooking your dinner the whole time while you're here on this program. What makes this really unique is that the property that you stay at has been in the same family for generations. And so Luca, who is the owner, he will be with you, and he'll be taking strolls through the vineyards with him, and he'll be talking about the varietals of grapes and how those particular grapes make his wine different than what you might experience elsewhere. The nice thing about this program is that there is a wine shipment that is sent before the tour. So before the departure, once you make your final payment, you actually get sent to you 6 bottles of wine from the vineyards that you'll be visiting, so that you'll be able to kind of sample and experience what you'll taste and explore while you're on tour. So that is our Flavors of Northern Italy program. And then the next one is the Galapagos Islands. So I have been on this tour twice and cannot speak highly enough of it. And so the Galapagos Islands will be in June of 2022, June 11th to 18th, starting at $49 per person, double occupancy. So we say the boat that you see behind the wildlife at the top, that's our vessel. So it's only 40 people. We charter it exclusively. We're actually the largest charterer of the vessel down in the Galapagos. We do about 40 departures every single year. And so on this program, you'll be joined by a team of about 4 or 5 naturalists, depending on if the boat is full at 40 or if there's 30 or whatnot. And so similar to Antarctica, every time you go out into the pangas and you're going onto the different islands and having the different guided walks and excursions, you're with about 10 other travelers with your own dedicated naturalist. And so with this program, you actually start in Quito. And so you have a day and a half in Quito where you do a cultural immersion day and you're visiting local markets. You're going to a local place of worship. You're taking a tour of a chocolatier factory and you learn about the Ecuadorian chocolate process. Then after that time in Quito, then you fly over to the islands. And so then you board the Isabella II, which is that cruise ship that I was talking about earlier. And then you have the 5 nights in the Galapagos on the Isabella II. And then you fly back to the mainland where you then end in Guayaquil. And then from Guayaquil, you either return home or you continue on to Peru for our Machu Picchu post tour on this program. And so on this program, all of your water gears are included. So if you want to go snorkeling, like you see in the picture here, if you wanted to go glass bottom boat riding, kayaking, any of those types of things are all provided to you. You get the free wetsuits to use while you're on tour, so you don't have to worry about packing any of that. And generally, the way the days are structured is that each day you do a morning experience where it's usually a hike or a nature walk, or you're going to look at a particular island where there's an abundance of a certain type of wildlife. You go back to the boat, refresh, have lunch, have your afternoon glass of wine or midday cocktail, and then you go back out on to land in the evening and then kind of sail to the next island, generally overnight. So that is our Galapagos program. Next is our Stunning Scotland program. So this program is late July through early August of next year, July 23rd through August 1st. And so with this program, you really do get to see the highlights. So the kind of the subtitle that I didn't include on here, Stunning Scotland, the highlights of the Highlands. And so on this week-long tour, you're really seeing a lot, but it's done in a really manageable, kind of easy pace. And so while this is a tour where you are kind of moving around and having a couple nights at different hotels, we do it in a way that when you get to these really superb properties, it's not like you get there late at night and then you're up the next morning moving on to somewhere else. We've built in time so then that way you can really experience and kind of take in all that this area of the world has to offer. So with this program, we start in Glasgow, and then from Glasgow, continue on going to the Isle of Skye, going to Stirling, Inverness, going to a lot of these castles, the distilleries. If you wanted to extend and play golf at St. Andrews, you have that opportunity. And so, so this is a really kind of, especially if you've never been to Scotland, a great way to kind of see and experience a lot in a relatively short period of time. And with this program, we do have an optional pre-tour in Dublin for 5 nights as well. So that is our Scotland program. Next is the Trans-Siberian.
Have you made arrangements? Yeah. Have you made arrangements with Nessie to show up?
I'm sorry, couldn't hear that, or we'll get to that at the end, I'm sorry. And so for the Trans-Siberian Railway program, so with this program, this will be August of next year. I know that there were some travelers, including Earl and a couple others on the call, that had their plans disrupted last year. And this year, obviously, is not one that will be able to happen predominantly because you're crossing many countries and different continents. And so while the train is running, we could not in good faith kind of put folks out there just knowing the changing requirements. But 2022, we are offering this again. Again, this is one that Rice has offered in the past that was very successful. And so with this program, There's an optional Beijing pre-tour, but then the main tour starts in Ulaanbaatar. And so you start there and then you progress on the railway. You see the picture of the train in the bottom left. And then you continue all the way through, crossing into Russia at the end. And so with this program, while it is a train program, most of the train travel is in the evenings and overnight, so that you're able to, during the day, you're getting out, you're going to home hosted lunches where you're meeting with families and learning about their music and their traditions and their culinary features. You're going to private music performances at places of worship. You're going to Lake Baikal and taking a tour there. And so while this is a long train program, I just like to make sure I call that out, that you're not on the train all day and just kind of seeing things through your window. When you are on the train, there is full butler service that is included, that's available to you. So if you are in your cabin and you have a hankering for some rosé and brie, you press the button, you let your butler know, and then he or she bring it to you. And then generally every day there are lectures or presentations that are had. You see the photo in the middle of the bottom of the screen, where everyone kind of gathers in either the dining car or the lounge car, but those are piped into the individual cabin. So if you preferred to stay in your own cabin and kind of lay in bed or sit in the easy chair and listen to the lecture while you're watching the scenery go by, you can do that and not feel as though you're missing out on any of the rich educational components. Then we return back home in September to the Southwest. And so the Southwest National Parks program is September 21st through the 29th. And so with this program, we start with this program, we're changing it. That's why I'm looking at the other way. So with this program, yes, we're starting in Phoenix and we continue up to the Grand Canyon, Monument Valley, Lake Powell, Bryce Canyon. So really getting that holistic experience and kind of visiting a lot of the signature parks in this area of the country. And so with this program, some of the things to just kind of remember with our national parks programs is that they're all led by former national park rangers. And so you are traveling with individuals who have spent the majority of their professional life working in the parks and working with the Park Service where you're visiting. So they know the little nooks where you pull off to have your picnic lunch that not everyone else knows. They're able to get us into certain experiences that the general public isn't able to have. Many of the nights we're actually staying in the national park lodges themselves. And so unlike some of the other national parks tours that are out there where you have to stay outside the park and you have to bus in and out, that while that makes the price lower, it really minimizes and diminishes the guest experience. And so we really take pride in the national parks guides and being able to stay in the park. One thing I will mention for this tour next year, I know the map on here shows the optional Moab and Mesa Verde pre-tour. You can pretend like you don't see that, because we're really happy and proud to share that we have an amazing relationship with the Rocky Mountaineer. And some of you may have heard that the Rocky Mountaineer is now starting domestic service from Denver to Moab. And so it will be our first domestic train program that we offer. And so the pre-tour for this program in 2022 will be the Rocky Mountaineer from Denver down to Moab. And so obviously by the time this is online and that you're getting brochures and everything like that, it will obviously be updated, but we literally signed the contracts a week and a half ago that we are the only domestic tour operator that is going to be able to offer the Rocky Mountaineer experience for the national parks. And then kind of the second to last one is our Flavors of Catalonia program. So similar to the Northern Italy one that I talked about earlier, with this program, you stay in one spot and you have the day trip. So this is one of those you unpack once and experience with the day trip. So of course, just like with Northern Italy, lots of food and wine and hands-on experiences where you're making food, you're touring the vineyards, you're going to different wineries, but throughout the days, an abundance of cultural immersion, going into the local villages, going into Madremena, going into the sites that are around you. And so it's a really leisurely paced program. And with any of our tours, but especially these types, the flavors, if there's a day that you just want to stay back and relax at your private villa, you are totally able to do that. You just let the expedition leader know, so then that way they're not waiting on you or anything, but you can kind of make this at the pace that you want. And so that is our Catalonia program. And then last but not least is the Toronto to Vancouver by rail. So the train travel, even in the era of COVID, we have not seen the demand for it go down. People might not be wanting to do it tomorrow, but there is still that desire for that quintessential train experience. And so with this one, it's a fall date that goes arguably in the better direction, I would say, from Toronto to Vancouver. So as you're traveling through the entire country, you are, especially at this time of the year, likely going to have some really spectacular fall colors, wildlife. And so all of the travelers with Orbridge, there's only 22 on each departure. We have the prestige class. And so you have the best of the best sleeping quarters on board, but you also have private access to the domed car. And you can see, it's a little hard to see on this photo, but you can kind of see the glass dome that would only be Orbridge travelers in that whole car just to us. And so you're seeing all the wildlife, the flora and the fauna as you're traveling across the country. Each of the stops that you make, so whether it is in Winnipeg or in Edmonton or any of the other ones, you do spend about an hour to 3, depending on the train schedule, in each of those. And so while you are able to get out and kind of explore, it's generally close to where you stop in those cities. And so I just like to kind of call attention to that this is not a tour where you're going to spend all day in Jasper or all day in Winnipeg. You'll have time there, but this is really more about the train and traveling during the daylight so that you're seeing these great wonders. And the way the timing of the itinerary is designed, it's so that you will be able to have a guaranteed daylight viewing of kind of going through the rock. So you're not going to be going through that at night or when you're not able to see or truly appreciate it. So those are our 8 tours. But then as I kind of wrap up before taking any and all questions that you might have, just a few things that I wanted to call your attention to that make Orbridge a little bit different than some of our competitors that are out there, which, having had Shannon's role, I can say they're all great. And so I'm excited for you to travel. Hopefully it's with Orbridge, but some of the things that just make us a little bit different than some of the other competitors out there is our true commitment to sustainability. So even during these really lean times for the travel business, we are still continuing with our commitment of planting 100,000 trees every single year. We partner with the Department of Forestry, and these are planted in the state of Wisconsin currently, with the hopes to expand further, but 100,000 trees printed every year. That's just kind of the signature, but we also provide reusable water bottles. We are, where possible, eliminating any single-use plastics, paper in our home office, all of those types of things that really add up and make a difference. And a lot of the suppliers that we use, we also source out ones that have that shared commitment. So the Northern Italy program, as an example, they are moving towards carbon neutral and doing carbon offsets for their wine production. And they don't use any pesticides, as an example. So it's an completely organic vineyard and property. So just a few examples of that. Also then custom curated expedition libraries. And so for every tour, once you sign up, if you sign up by the early booking date, which is always either on the website or on the brochures that you would get in your mailboxes, if you sign up by that date, once you make your final payment, you do receive a full library that is sent to you, generally with about 4 or 5 really high quality pieces, a mix of fiction, nonfiction, really high quality expedition guides. But with the flavors programs, it is wine instead. And so for Catalonia and for Northern Italy, if for those ones, we send, like I said earlier, the 6 bottles of wine from vineyards that you're going to be visiting while on tour. I already shared a little bit about that we work exclusively only with alumni associations and nonprofits. So there will be no one on your tour that found us by doing an online search or anything like that. So you know that because that is our bread and butter, that's who we work with and who we really take pride in serving in the travel industry. And then lastly, as I talked about earlier, that commitment to safety and flexibility is the common theme that is woven throughout all of our experiences and what you can expect from us. And so I know Shannon has recorded this, so it will be online. But if you're watching now, or if you're watching this recorded and you sign up for any Orbridge tour before Friday, May 21st, so you have plenty of time. If you sign up online at rice.orbridge.com, that's where you can find these tours and the online booking page. If you sign up online and if you put Traveling Owl's destination debut or some version of that in the additional info box online, then you will receive an automatic $125 discount off of your total amount due. And so, so with that, I really want to thank everyone for, even if you don't travel with Orbridge, just thinking about travel. We've all been through so much this year and year and a half almost at this point, that to kind of have something to look forward to really means a lot and really helps us kind of get through these challenging times. And so while I hope you travel again soon, and you travel again soon with Orbridge, regardless of if that happens, I do hope that you are back on the road when you're ready and when you feel comfortable, and we'll be here to take good care of you when that time comes with Orbridge. And so without further ado, I'm going to stop the screen share, Shannon, and then I will be happy to take any questions that anyone might have. And if I don't know it, then I will not pretend like I do, and I'll follow up and get you the answers. So back to you, Shannon.
I went ahead and put all of the trips that Dan talked about in the chat because there's quite a few of them. And so that might refresh your memory on if there's a specific one you had a question on. We didn't have any questions come through the chat, so you're welcome to take yourself off mute and ask Dan directly right now.
Dan, this is Nancy Bailey.
Hi, Nancy.
The Antarctica trip, you said the dates changed to the 4th through the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
What are the pre-tour and post-tour dates?
They are, give me 1 second, and I will, that is one that I know exactly where to look. So I can get you that information right now so that you have the specific dates for it. Give me 1 second, and it is.
I mean, I'm thinking New Year's Eve, but that's kind of a pain.
So for the January 4th Antarctica program, so January 4th includes that travel time. So the Buenos Aires pre-tour is January 2nd through the 5th. And then that is kind of when the main tour, when folks arrive and are boarding. And then the Iguazu Falls post-tour is Jan 15th through the 18th.
Okay, and you show in your brochure the single rate for the pre-tour and the single rate for the post-tour, but what's the single rate? Do you have the single rates for the main tour?
Yes, the single rate for the main tour is $15,995.
That's for the cheapest, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that is
$15,995. Well, oh well. Okay. What else?
Any other questions for me from anyone?
Yeah, Diane, this is Earl.
Yes.
I'm booked on the whales and bears for this July. Any update on how Canada is treating us Yankees?
Great question. We are expecting an update on or around May 21st. And
Okay.
on or around May 21st is when we are anticipating either another full extension, which we don't think is going to happen, or what we think may happen on or around that date is that they will announce a phased reopening for travelers, that if you have a vaccine, you can start arriving as of this day. If you don't, then you can arrive as of this day. So that's what we think will be announced. And so anyone that is on not only that tour that you're on, Earl, but we also have some August ones, and then kind of continuing on from there. We hope to kind of be able to make enough informed decision on or around May 20th-ish. So you'll expect to hear from us then.
I'm sure I'm the earliest one to sign up for that trip since I signed up.
Yeah. No, there's a good number of folks on that tour. So especially for those that postponed from last year on that same itinerary.
Yeah. Well, I signed up when they canceled Trans-Siberia last year. So
yeah. I see a lot of familiar faces that I know usually have questions and comments and everything. Stephanie and Charlie and Gail, and who else do I see? I'm scrolling through. Chad.
Hey, Dan, it's good to see you. I'll jump in with a question. I guess sort of a pair of questions. I think the first is that, obviously the vaccine rollout in the rest of the world is not going as quickly as it is here in the US. So even though all of the travelers on a program might be vaccinated, like what other efforts are y'all making for the people we interact with there, whether it's tour guides or people like that, with regard to the vaccine? And then my second question along with that is, regardless of a country's policy, like the US or a country we're visiting, is there sort of a certain point at which the pandemic reaches a level in a certain country where you all decide that it's no longer safe to travel there? If that makes sense.
It does. So for your first question, all of our on-tour staff on the ground will be vaccinated. And so with our supplier networks, we have the ability to make that happen. And so the staff that are kind of from country that you'll be traveling with would be vaccinated. They would also be have the negative COVID test in advance of the tour as well. But kind of more broadly speaking about kind of the folks that you'll interact with at the local shop or the market or something like that, most of the international destinations, even those that we are kind of anticipating being able to run later this year and into next, is that there is a strong kind of requirement of like the face coverings. And so we are requiring to obviously follow local guidance, but even if the local city or village that we're visiting, they're not necessarily requiring face coverings, we are asking our travelers that while you are on any kind of official excursion or sponsored experience, that you do maintain social distancing, have face coverings, we'll provide sanitizer and whatnot. So those are just some of the steps that we're taking to try to kind of keep our bubble as safe as possible. And then in terms of determining like if there's a threshold before whether or not we'll be able to go or not, we will, generally it's approximately 45 days prior to the scheduled departure where we make the final call. And so at that point is when we would reach out to guests and let them know that either because of what's currently happening or what may happen. So that is kind of our threshold. Obviously, it's kind of a moving target, and I wish that there was a kind of a across the board policy statement, but we've intentionally kind of taking it departure by departure, destination by destination.
Great, thank you.
Other thoughts or questions?
I'm new to Orbridge, so I was interested in some background on the choice of Wisconsin for planting those trees? Are they in parks, or is that in a like commercial paper pulp forest?
Great question. So the reason why it's Wisconsin is, it sounds kind of silly, but the founder and owner of Orbridge knows someone in the Department of Forestry that is based in the state of Wisconsin. And so there was a lot less red tape to have to get through to be able to invest in this type of priority. And so all of the trees that are planted in national forests in Wisconsin because of our connection that we have up there. Any other thoughts or questions? And again, I know that you have a lot of great webinars set up throughout the rest of this week that Shannon put together with other operators. So this is the first of all of a lot of great opportunities that you're going to be learning about throughout the week.
Dan, this is Sydney. Can you describe the Scotland trip a little bit more in detail?
Yeah, certainly. I'm going to kind of pull up some of the main points just so then that way I'm giving good information. So 1 second. And that way I know that these really high level overviews really don't do much justice. So with this program, you're starting in Glasgow, and then you will, we have included sightseeing at the Gallery of Modern Art. We go to the Glasgow Cathedral, and then we have a private after hours tour and dinner at the Kelvin Grove Art Gallery that is open. And then throughout the tour, there'll be local distilleries that we're visiting where we're learning from trained guides, having a tasting at all of these places. Other highlights include Stirling Castle. And so as some of you know, that's situated on the top of the volcanic outcrop of the River Forth. And so while they're learning about the rich history that this castle has, including Queen of Scots and William Wallace, learning about the bagpipes and then the tradition that they have when it comes to the battle and the clans. Other highlights include the Ilion Castle, which is one of the most recognized castles in Scotland. That's at the site of the Bishop Donan's cell that was created in 634 AD. Go through the ruins of Urquhart Castle. We go to the Culloden battlefield, which is the site of the final battle of the Jacobite Rising. Then we go, when we're at Glommen's Castle, there's a special welcoming, and it's just our group that is visiting when we get there. And so that's the setting for Shakespeare's Macbeth and the childhood home of Queen Elizabeth's mother. Then we continue on into St. Andrews, and like I said, there is the opportunity for the golf aficionados to sign up for golf while you're there. Obviously, there is an extra fee for that, but whether or not you opt to do it, we do spend time in St. Andrews, and then in Edinburgh visiting the Palace of the Hollywood Rose, which is Queen Elizabeth's official residence in Scotland. So those are some of the highlights, kind of in a kind of bullet by bullet format for that particular tour, Sydney.
Thank you.
When I was in Scotland a number of years ago, we had our tour of the distillery at 9 o'clock in the morning, which made our our tasting a little awkward, but we survived.
You felt good for the rest of the day, right?
Right.
Sounds like a great way to start the day.
Yeah. Well, there were several ladies on the trip who didn't think sampling at 10 o'clock was appropriate, so and they'd already poured the samples, so I had to help out.
Way to take one for the team.
Right.
Well, we've traveled in Scotland, and at one of our B&Bs, it was part of breakfast to have whiskey in the porridge. Well,
if there are no other questions, I know that my email address was on the last slide, but I will obviously anything that's program related regarding the traveling owls, Shannon is your go-to and your resource. But if as you review these tours in particular, and especially once you go to our website and kind of click through the rice.orbridge.com, I'm putting that link in here as well. I think Shannon already did, but this chat has gone down, so apologies if I'm duplicating it. But I just put in my personal email address for any tour specific questions that you might have, as well as that co-branded website. But like I said, Shannon is your go-to for all things rice and traveling owls related.
Well, thank you all for your very thoughtful questions. And then thank you so much, Dan, for your time. I know it was hard to kind of go over 8 trips. So if there are questions that pop up, again, definitely reach out to Dan. Look at that website. It's very comprehensive. You're also welcome to, like I mentioned, for like maybe the 6th time, email me at travelingowls@rice.edu. And I'd be happy to connect you with that or find you the right answer. Again, last call for questions. Otherwise, enjoy your evening, and thank you so much for spending another hour with us.
Thanks.
Bye, you guys.
Great to see all of you.
Good to see you, Dan.
Yeah.